Well, welcome to the Veteran Outdoorsman channel. Hope you've been enjoying our videos. I'm going to continue on the shotgun series. We started off with how to select the right gauge. I gave two of my recommendations. Again, whatever you pick, I'm fine with. The two that I selected, I believe, are the best choices, but your mileage may vary. Now we're going to talk about chokes. Now, you don't necessarily have to select a specific choke on a shotgun because most of them come with these screw-in chokes. They're interchangeable. You find one with the right pattern and you can change it from cylinder bore all the way down to super full. You can use rifled choke tubes, etc. But let's talk about what a choke is and what it does. The choke of a shotgun is basically a funnel at the end of the bore of the shotgun. The older shotguns and some of the cheaper, newer manufactured guns, such as Hatfield single barrels, things like that, had a fixed choke, but the barrel had this funnel at the end. If you look, it's much thicker on this end than it is on that end. So, you start out at bore diameter. So for a 12 gauge, 730, 725, somewhere in there. And then there's a taper on the inside. And then for these chokes, a parallel. But on a lot of the old fixed chokes, it was just a taper. But regardless, it's like a funnel and it chokes the pellets down. A shotgun load has either birdshot, buckshot. We won't be talking about slugs yet. But just a wad of lead balls. So years ago, when shotguns first started being used, they started using shot in smoothbore muskets and things like that. They discovered that if you choke down that end of that barrel a little bit, you got a better pattern and you could reach out further. When there's no choke or cylinder bore, your pattern, regardless of gauge, typically isn't very good past about 20 yards. With the right shell, you may be able to reach a little further, but not much. They've discovered over the years that even a slight choke like 5 thousandths, meaning 5 thousandths smaller than the bore diameter of the barrel, allows you to reach out a little bit further. Standard chokes would be full, modified, and improved cylinder. Improved cylinder, I believe, is 10 thousandths less than bore diameter. Modifying being 20 and full being 30. I believe that's how it goes. So let's see, 695, 705, 725. Yes. So, maybe not quite. I may not be quite right there, but it's varying degrees of choke. For a long time, full would be the tightest. A full for a standard 12 gauge bore is typically around 695. 690 to 695. I did have an old Stevens pump with a factory fixed full that measured 680. No, it was not a sleeved gun. It did shoot very well at shooting matches, though, at stock shooting matches. But basically, think of it this way: full is to reach out there. If you're taking game at 40 yards and beyond, the full is the choke you want. Modified for out to 30, 35 yards, maybe a little bit further, depending on the shells and whatnot. And then inside of that, 25 yards and in or so, an improved cylinder will work just fine. A skeet is originated for clay birds, things like that. That's what it's called. Skeet. I believe it's only 5 thousandths choke, but it works fine for doves out to, say, 20, maybe 25 yards and gives you a really wide pattern. So if you're shooting fast stuff at close range, jump shooting rabbits, flushing quail, shooting doves coming in decoys, a really open choke such as an improved cylinder or a skeet or maybe even a cylinder will work great. If you get some longer shots past shooting doves out there a little bit further, um, shooting rabbits on fence rows and things where they're breaking into open fields and getting out their ways. Squirrels, where you may be shooting at the top of a hickory tree or something like that. Ducks, you're shooting a little bit further, shooting a bigger animal, want to hit them with more pellets. Um, Deer with buckshot, things like that. A modified, maybe a better choice. And in the old days of fixed chokes, a modified was considered the best all around. It wasn't great for long range, it wasn't real good for close range, but it did everything okay. As the old saying goes, a jack of all trades, but a master of none, and a modified worked really well. And I have a couple of fixed choke modified guns um, that I have used for years. An old single shot 12 gauge that was my only shotgun for a long time, and an old single shot 20 gauge. And with both of those, I took a myriad of game. And when you didn't have a choice, but you had to have a fixed choke, a modified was the best all around option. If you have the availability of screw-in chokes like most even inexpensive guns have today, where they take something like this. If you could only afford one choke, obviously modified. The Remingtons used to come with just a modified choke, and then you could buy a set that had a full and an improved cylinder and a choke wrench and a little bit of rim oil in a little box. And those were a great addition for another, 30, 40 bucks to your new shotgun purchase. Winchesters generally came with all three and still do. Lots of them come with all three chokes now. I think that's pretty standard. And you'll come with a full, unmodified, and improved cylinder, and not a whole lot that you can't do with that group. If you have full, modified, and improved cylinder for bird hunting, such as dove hunting, really close duck hunting, like decoying, things like that, especially small birds such as teal, wood ducks, things like that. Improved cylinder can be okay for rabbit hunting, though I prefer a modified, but it can be fine for rabbit hunting, especially if you're running slow beagles and they run them real close to you. That can be really good. And then a modified for maybe some longer range rabbit hunting, for squirrel hunting, for larger birds such as grouse or pheasant or something where you just want to get more heavier pellets in them, like number 6s, 7.5s, maybe even number 4s. Later season birds that are flushing out further away, things like that. A modified works really well. Maybe you hunt jackrabbits with a shotgun. A modified will work better in those cases with heavy loads of shot. And then a full would most people's minimum for turkey hunting. Shoot squirrels way at the top of trees. Shoot ducks way out there, 40, 50 plus yards, things like that. But a full modified and improved cylinder will allow you to do pretty well anything you want to do. But then there's specialty chokes. You want to shoot a lot of clay birds. You probably want to get a skeet choke, which is even lighter than improved cylinder and allows a larger pattern at really close range. Maybe you want to use it for home defense. You may want to get a cylinder. really open it up as close as possible, as much as possible, as fast as possible. Then there is light modified, between modified and improved cylinder. And I like this for dove hunting. Gives a little more choke and a little more reach, but still a nice wide pattern. And I found that I tend to hit the birds with a couple of pellets more and drop them faster. With improved cylinder, I didn't have a problem hitting the birds and dropping them, but sometimes they weren't dead when I got to them. But with a light modified, I found that I hit them just a little bit harder with a couple more pellets, and a lot of times that made the difference in being able to find the bird dead or having to chase a wounded bird. Then you have modified your all around choke that'll do a little bit of everything but it's not real good at anything. Then you have an improved modified, just a little bit tighter than modified. I found that I like that for later season squirrels and things. And it could be a good pheasant choke, stuff like that. Then a full choke for really being able to reach out there. And then you could get extra full, which is around 680, 685. Super fulls into 675, 660, and you can get all the way down to like 640. This is 12 gauge, but you can look it up. The choke names, though the diameters are different, the choke names would be the same for any of the other gauges. Typically in 20 gauge, you'll go down to the super fulls and extra fulls. 28 gauge, 410, things like that. You're just going to have full modified, improved cylinder. 410s, a lot of them are just a fixed modifier full. But for specialty stuff like card shoots or for turkey hunting, things like that, an extended, extra full, or super full would be more what you want. But that's again more of a specialty choke. Honestly, if you're just shooting standard lead shot, or even heavy shot, probably a 2 3/4 or 3-inch 12 gauge with a standard factory full choke will generally reach out there to around 40 yards and kill a turkey, but you need to pattern your gun. I know there are guns out there with certain shells that won't pattern that well, but my very first turkey was with a factory full and a 3-inch 1 7/8 ounce number 6 Winchester Super X shell, and it worked just fine. It put a number of pellets in the turkey, dropped it in its tracks. So if you have a full modified and improved cylinder, you can do everything, but then you can supplement it with other lighter, heavier, and medium chokes in there and really have a nice selection. My Beretta, I have Skeet light modified, Skeet improved cylinder, light modified, improved modified, full, extra full, and multiple super full turkey chokes from 665 all the way down to like 650. A little bit of everything, but that was my go everywhere, do anything gun for a long time. Something else, if you have screw-in chokes, you can get rifled choke tubes that actually have rifling in them. They're typically extended. They'll have rifling in them, and they work really well for slugs. Or you can shoot improved cylinder. That's typically what's recommended for slugs. People find that with Foster style slugs or Bernicke style slugs, they typically shoot a little bit better with a little bit of choke. Improved cylinder or maybe Skeet. You could certainly shoot them out of a cylinder bore, but I've found that improved cylinder and sometimes even modified shoots better with those old Foster style slugs. My old 870 with a factory modified choke tube shot probably 2 or 3-inch groups just standing at 50 yards with standard Remington 1 ounce Foster slugs. With Winchesters, I found that an improved cylinder worked a little bit better, but a modified worked really well with those Remingtons. So something to try, something to test, etc. For shooting Bernanke style slugs, you can certainly shoot them in an improved cylinder. Um, but you may get a little better performance with a rifle tube, and then you can also get into the lower velocity sabos like a Remington Buckhammer. Um, some of the like the old Winchester BRIs and things like that, and get a little bit of spin, put some sights on it, and get a little more accuracy out of your shotgun with slugs. Then there's some other options. Maybe you're looking at old classics, and you don't necessarily want a collector, but you want a shooter. And you find an old Model 12, or an old Auto 5, or an 1100, 1148, 58, an old Remington Model 11, an old 870, Mossberg 500, etc., with a poly choke or one of the others like Select choke, etc., an adjustable choke on the end. Your mileage may vary on these, but as a general rule, those work pretty well and they're handy. They add a little bit more muzzle weight to the barrel, which can help with lead. They're not the prettiest thing in the world, but let's be honest, that knurled thing on the end of your barrel isn't very pretty either, and the ones with ports and vents and stuff aren't either, so you're kind of splitting hairs if you don't want that gun because it's ugly. The newer polychokes were even steel shot compatible, so there's that. Look up online, see which ones are and which ones aren't. There was a change when polychoke was steel shot compatible. But with just a turn, you can change chokes. So instead of unscrewing and screwing a choke in, you can just change your choke. A squirrel's way up in a tree and you were set on modified and you want to use full. Now, I wouldn't recommend this with a loaded gun, but lots of guys did it. They just reach up and twist the choke down, tighten it, and then boom. You could certainly take the shell out of the chamber, make your adjustment, chamber another shell, and shoot. That would be the safe way to go. You don't have to carry a pocket full of choke tubes, so that may be something to think about. And then there's the old Cuts compensator, which had this great bulbous thing on the end of it, this cylinder with slots in it, and had a choke tube in the end of it. And you carry those just like a regular pocket full of choke tubes. There's a little wrench you had to use to change them out. So that's options too. But as a general rule, the guns you're going to come across when you're looking for a shotgun are either going to have a fixed choke or screw-in choke. So whatever screw-in choke it has, you'll be able to find aftermarket or even factory chokes. The most common... Rosie, be quiet. Sorry about that, guys. The most common choke pattern being the Winchester or Invector style were used for years. That's what this is. Next, probably being the Remington and then the Invector Plus, but then there's lots of them. The Beretta Benelli mobile choke. There's the cryo chokes. There's whatever the latest Invector is. It's not Invector. There was Invector Plus, and now there's something else. There's all sorts of different patterns, but the aftermarket choke guys make them for everything. And then there's also the old Hastings Wadlock chokes, all sorts of stuff out there. So if you find a fixed choked gun, I recommend getting a modified. Unless you're strictly a bird hunter, then find an improved cylinder or skeet. And then as far as choke tubes go, just find the gun you like and get the chokes that you need. Preferably find one that already has at least the 3 main, full, modified, and improved cylinder. Then you can add as you need them. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a little bit. I'm going to go more and more in depth as we go on about action types and things like that. We'll discuss gauges, we'll discuss chokes, we're going to discuss the uses of a shotgun next, and then action types and how they apply to the usages. So stay tuned. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when the next video hits. And we will see you next time.